Hey everybody, Bill 1911 here. Hey, we're going to start on part 3 of our series on the Allied rifles of World War II. Now this particular one is the U.S. bolt-action Springfield rifle of 1903. Now this thing has some interesting history to it. The first thing we need to say is that this rifle was not only used in World War II. It was also used in World War I. Okay. Its predecessor was a rifle called the 3040 Craig Jorgensen. Now the Craig Jorgensen had some issues with it that meant it really wasn't well suited for a more modern military. Now I'm going to take the bolt out of this and I'm going to show you something on the bolt. Okay. Now on this bolt, okay, where it slides into the receiver, there are two of these great big heavy lugs, all right? You can see them here and here. These lock the bolt into place. Further, there is another very large lug back here on the back of the bolt, okay? Plus you've got the bolt handle itself. Now when all of these are in the action, this bolt is very, very strong and will handle a very high pressure cartridge. Well, that was the problem with the 3040 Craig, is it only had one of these bolt lugs, just one on the bolt, okay? It didn't have the second one or the third one, or, you know, the bolt lever, the way it worked, didn't really engage as well. So this is a much, much stronger rifle. So it would handle a higher pressure cartridge. Well, in 1901, they invented a cartridge called the 3001. Okay, it was sometimes referred to as the 3045 because unlike the 3040 Craig that had 40 grains of gunpowder in it, the 3001 had 45 grains of powder and had an extra 5 grains. Well, it was shooting a round nose 220 grain bullet, and one of the problems that they had with it is that pushing that bullet real hard like that 220 grain bullet, it created a lot of internal chamber pressure, okay? And because of that internal chamber pressure, it burned the rifling on the barrel. Okay, they got a lot of high temperatures out of it and all the rest. So then they came up with a cartridge called the 3003, and the 3003 didn't last very long either. It was still pushing that round nose 220 grain bullet, but it did have a different powder in it. Okay, so then they came up with the 3006. Okay, now that's the caliber 30 of 1906 cartridge. They got away from saying that it's a 30 caliber cartridge with 40 grains of powder or 45 grains of powder. They got away from that designation because if you use different powders, you might get a different charge out of one powder than you get out of another. So they started using the designation 30 caliber of the year that it was adopted. In this case, it was adopted in 1906. So all of these 1903 rifles were recalled, and they didn't put new barrels on them. They just simply remachined the barrel to accommodate the 3006 cartridge. They also put a sight on there that's called a 1905 sight. That's this guy right here, okay, the rear sight. This gun was engineered with the Mauser rifle as its pattern. In other words, the multiple bolt lugs and things like that that we see on this rifle, well, those were also in the Mauser rifle. So a lot of what we see here is kind of a copy of the Mauser. I mean, it's re-engineered, of course, but it uses the same design features as, or some of the same design features as the Mauser. Now, one of the things about this rifle is, if you look right here, this little button on the side, okay, if we put it in this position, okay, we can simply extract the bolt completely out of the gun, okay? So, don't get up there, you. If we put that lever in the upward position, like that, what it allows the bolt to do is come back a little further, but not come clear out of the gun, okay? Now, what does that do for us? Well, I'm going to show you on the other camera in just a minute exactly what that does. So we're going to be right back. Okay, we're back. I'd like to also thank my assistant gunsmith, Scamp, once again for helping me out with this video. For some reason, he doesn't like the smell of these gloves very much, so every time he sees them, he gets a little weird. So, anyway, so that's my assistant gunsmith, Scamp. All right, so on the 3006 Springfield rifle of 1903, okay, as time went by, they started adding number and letter suffixes to them, like this is the A3, okay. It's just, you'll find different designations on them. I wanted to tell you, if you actually have one of these old 1903 Springfields, no alphanumeric suffix, okay, just 1903 Springfield, and it is chambered in 3003, believe me, you have something that is worth a pile. It is an exceedingly rare gun. Estimates are somewhere between 50 and 100 of them still in existence at all. So if you've got one, don't mess with it, don't change it, don't alter it, because believe me, it's worth a pile. All right. Hey everybody, Bill 1911 here. Hey listen, if you're watching this video, if you're enjoying it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, okay? That's really important to us. And make sure you like us, and by all means, come to visit us at AskBill1911.com. So, what I told you I was going to do is show you why this selector back here on the back is in existence. Well, in the bottom position, okay, when you open the bolt, okay, the bolt will only come back to that point. This holds the follower in the down position on the back and means you can immediately push the bolt back and forth with no restrictions from that follower. Okay, in the center position, okay, the bolt can be extracted completely out of the gun, okay, like that. But what happens is that follower pops up into place and doesn't allow the bolt to come forward. You have to press the follower down and then the bolt can come forward. All right. Now in the up position on that selector, it allows the bolt to come back all the way until the point where that follower pops all the way up, okay? But it doesn't allow the bolt to come clear out of the gun. Now, why would they do that? That seems kind of strange, right? All right, this is why. This, okay, is called a stripper clip. Now, this gun was set up with a small channel in the back of it to accommodate that stripper clip, okay? It just pushes down into the rifle like that. So when you wanted to load the rifle, you take these cartridges and you just shove them straight down out of that stripper clip right into the action like that, okay? And that's how you could load 5 rounds in this thing very, very quickly. But I wanted to show you how that stripper clip works and what that position was on that little switch that's back here on the back, okay? That allows that stripper clip to be mounted and allows you to just shove the cartridges right down in and load it very, very quickly, okay? So, this was kind of a stopgap between a detachable magazine, okay, and this integral box magazine that this 3006 had, okay? So, all right, now we're going to go ahead and take the cartridges out, and we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so I've talked about this before. Sometimes you hear people call a magazine a clip. Well, it really isn't. This is a clip. This, down inside this bolt-action rifle, is a magazine. Okay, that's where the rounds are put into the gun. All right, so They are different. Some people get really, really weird about, oh, you shouldn't call that a clip. Well, they're right. It is true. This is a clip and this is a magazine. On other rifles, they have a detachable magazine, okay? But that's just food for thought, just something for you to know. All right, so we're going to start taking this gun apart. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the bolt out of the gun. Now, as I showed you before, this selector on the side, we put it in the center position and the bolt just extracts right out the back of the gun, okay? So from here, we're going to start by taking the stocks off, all right? Normally, really honestly, I wouldn't bother to take the stock off. Maybe every third or fourth time you clean it, you can take it apart just to verify that there's no rust forming underneath the wood stocks here and stuff like that. But for the most part, you really won't need to take this gun apart, all right? So, in order to get it apart, the first thing has to come off is the upper handguard. That's this piece here. In order to get that off, okay, we're going to have to take some screws loose, all right, and we're going to have to take this front cap right here, okay, off the gun. Now it's just got one screw that passes all the way through a hole in the stock. This piece of sheet metal here, stamped sheet metal, this was your bayonet mount. This is where you mounted your bayonet on this rifle, okay? So it had on the handle a clip that clipped into here and a ring that just went right around the barrel here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start taking this out. Now, this screw has had a lot of time on it, and when I got the rifle, it was not in the best of shape on this particular screw. The rest of the gun's in fantastic shape, but that screw has suffered over the years, and the head has gotten a little beaten up where the slot is cut for the screwdriver. Just informational, not important. So from here, we're going to take this sheet metal and we're going to slide it off the end of the gun. All right, I'm going to have to kind of bump it off a little bit. All right, like that, and off it comes. Now, in order to get this off the front of the gun, the front sight hits it, okay? So what we have to do is turn it over upside down, and that blade will go right through that little passage that's cut into it, and it'll slide right off the end. All right, let me show that again. I'm not sure I had it in frame. All right, so this way it won't come off. Turn it over upside down, and it will slide right off the end of the barrel. Okay, the blade of the front sight goes right through there. So don't worry, you don't have to pull the pin out and take the blade out of the front of the sight. You're not going to need to do that. This will come off. Okay, so from there, we're going to loosen up this front ring, okay? Now, you don't need to take the screw clear out of the ring. Just get it to where it's loose and it'll come right off the end. Now, it's the same situation. You roll this one upside down to slide it off the end and it'll come right off, okay? So now from here, we need to take this apart. Now, normally, I would readjust the strap so I can get it off, but what I think I'm going to do in this case is just go ahead and pull the screw all the way out. Okay, and that is going to allow me to extract that screw. Come on out. Okay. And take that strap right off. Okay. Now on the back, it has on it, I'm going to show you that in just a minute, a little hook that hooks the strap on the back ring. So you can't really slide this right straight off. You can now, but if you've got the bolt in this, it won't slide right off the end because, believe it or not, the stock is a little thinner right here than it is right here. So you'd have to take this whole piece forward and then you can slide it off. That's if the screw was still in that piece. So I'm going to just set it in place so we don't lose it. All right, just go like that and give it a couple of twists so the threads are caught. All right, now that's in place. Okay, so that takes the top handguard off the gun. All right, I'll set that aside. Won't fall over. All right, so from here, the gun will not lift out yet. Okay, it's still in there. As you can see, you can't lift it out of the stock. So what it has is two screws that are underneath that go through this magazine box. Okay, it's just two screws. We're going to take them loose. They're not hard to get out. Okay. Now put your hand on top of it before you loosen that second screw, because remember that magazine follower spring is actually pushing up on this. So you're going to hold it down. Unscrew your back screw now. And once it is completely out, okay, like that, now you can just, well, I'm a little caught on the front screw, so I'm going to come a little bit more on this one. And once it comes out, okay, this whole box magazine will lift right out of the gun. Okay? Alright, so from there, the follower will lift right out of the gun. Okay? And the action will now come right out of the stock. Okay, we can lift it right out. Okay? So I'm going to set the stock aside. And that's about as complicated as this gun gets. It's just very, very simple. Now, if you want to do something with the trigger, it's one pin to take it out. Now, I'm not going to take it out. I can, but it's got a little spring in there that's a little stiff, and it makes it kind of a pain in the neck to put it back in place. But this is what they call a two-stage trigger. All right, it comes back, goes up against, and then you pull it a little further, and it fires the gun. Okay, now this is this two-stage trigger. Okay, as you pull the trigger, it comes back, and kind of, you'll feel it. You can actually even hear it a little bit going up against, and then from there, you pull it the rest of the way, and it pulls this catch down out of the way. And that releases this cocking piece to come forward and hit the firing pin. Okay, so let me do that one more time. Okay, and that's what fires the gun. This lever right here on the back of the bolt is the safety. Okay, you push that safety. Well, it won't do it when it's in that position. So let me put it back in the gun. Okay. Alright, once it's cocked, okay, you can push that safety up, okay. If you go all the way over like that, it locks the bolt so the bolt can't be turned, okay. If you go to the center, okay, well, you can still turn it, okay, and pull it out if you want to. But that's your safe position, and you'll see written right on it, it says safe, okay. When you put it the other way, it says ready, meaning ready to fire. So it shouldn't be confusing on that. It's a very simple, very straightforward, very, very strong action. This thing will handle 60,000 copper units of pressure with no trouble at all. It's just a very, very strong gun. Not complicated. Now, one thing I did want to show you is that you can, okay, uncock this thing. Now, verify your chamber is empty, okay? So you can just start the bolt heading down, okay? Pull the trigger and lower it, okay? That will decock this gun. I'm going to show you it one more time here. If you'll notice, the cocking piece comes back as you open the bolt, okay? All right. Now once it's open like that, okay, pull it down a little bit and you'll see that cocking piece is going to go forward and up against the trigger. Boop, right there. Okay, that's up against the trigger. From there, when you pull that trigger down, you can lower the bolt and decock it. Okay. Like I said, very simple rifle. So let's put her back together. again, I'm going to take the bolt out, just because it's a little easier to deal with when it's out of the way. Alright, so we start by setting the rifle back into the stock. Okay. Now, once it's set in here, okay, now we're going to start putting the rest of it back together. Okay. I'm going to set it down, upside down, like that. Okay. And we're going to need the follower to go into place. Okay, that's next. That drops in. And then the box magazine goes in on top of that. Okay. Now you got to be careful when you put this in. You can run this spring backward and it will actually come out of the follower. Alright, so you want to make sure that it's locked in where it's supposed to be. Alright, so it doesn't move around on you. Now we're going to push that box magazine down, okay, until it all drops into place. And then we're going to set our screws. The next thing we need to do is put the stock back in place. Alright, so now this is where I'm going to show you that if that screw is in, okay, this won't come back over the stock. It'll stop right here, and you don't want to scratch up your stock. So the way you deal with that is you simply move the front handguard forward a little bit, slide that ring back into place, and then slide the whole thing back to where it belongs on the rifle. Okay, once you've done that, that ring's in place. Okay, so from here we're going to put on the front ring. That's going to slide over upside down. Okay, rotate the other way and come back and slip into place. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and tighten these up to hold the stock still. Okay, now that'll hold the stock in place. Alright, no problem there. So now we're going to take that front piece. Now there's a front way to put it on and a back way to put it on. If you'll notice, right up here on the front, it's rounded on this front edge of this bayonet catch, if you will. That needs to face forward on the rifle. Another way to look at it is if you put this right next to the hole, okay, you'll see that that screw hole is going to line up with the hole through the stock. Okay, if you got it the wrong way, okay, that screw hole is going to be way up forward to where it would pass through that hole. So there is a front way and a back way. We slide it on the same way we got it off. We go right through that little trough, rotate it, and push it right back into position where it's supposed to go. Now it may fight you a little bit. Use your plastic handled screwdriver and tap her back into position. Okay, your screw goes through, okay, which of course it's going to give me a hard time. And this is where that boogered up screw head becomes a pain in the neck, okay, as it doesn't want to slide through very easily. Come on, stop popping out on me. Oh, get in there, you stinker. Now, once you get this screw through here, it's going to hook into the threads that are on the opposite side of this sheet metal bayonet lug. Okay. Okay, that one's up against, this one's up against. Now, on this one, I'm going to have to take the screw back out of it to get this strap back into position without readjusting the whole strap, which is what I didn't want to have to do. So, we'll unscrew our screw. Now, if the screw was out of this all the way, it will slide up and down the stock at that point, okay? But if the screw is in it, this piece of metal here is a spring, and it retains that from slipping off the front of the gun, okay? So, all I'm trying to do is get the darn strap back into place. Like that, okay? Now I'm going to squeeze the ends of this back together with my fingers, and then screw my screw into place. And once it threads in there, which of course it's not, it's fighting me because that screw is slightly off kilter right now. Okay, now it's bit. Alright, so once again I'm going to talk about not over tightening these stock furniture screws. Don't crush the stock. Okay? You don't need to get it that tight. It needs to be snug, okay? And that's it, no more. Okay, so now our strap is back on, okay? And our gun is reassembled with the exception of the bolt. Now, with this bolt, one of the things that's going to happen is when you go to put it back in, remember that floor plate is not going to let it go forward, so you're going to have to push that floor plate down a little bit with your thumb, and then the bolt will go the rest of the way in. From there you can lock your switch, and now you won't have that problem with it. Okay, so from here we can decock the gun, and that is the 1903 A3 Springfield rifle. Hey everybody, Bill 1911 here. Hey listen, if you're watching this video, if you're enjoying it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, okay? That's really important to us. And make sure you like us, and by all means, come to visit us at AskBill1911.com.